And we're looking forward to this presentation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to be here with Frank. And I really admire Frank. It's a tough undertaking that he has. That's just to see if these folks are going to come in here.
Come on in, guys. The water's good.
Thank you.
Plenty of room, plenty of room. Are there any more chairs that you want to bring in?
There's two right here.
There's 2 chairs up front.
Yeah,
I don't bite.
Rudy's promised not to ask questions of anybody sitting up front. He's only going to ask questions of people in the back.
There you go.
In case Ellen needs help, I'm gonna sit right next to her.
all right.
With the PowerPoint.
Well, I thank you very much, and again, it's such a lovely home, and I want to talk about my talk is entitled "Magnificent America," and it's really a look at the years since World War II and what America has done, and I spoke before about the fact that the 21st century should be an American century. Now I'm going to tell you why, for the good of the world, that should happen. And my talk, again, is entitled "Magnificent America: How We Have Spread Freedom Around the World." And I have 2 subtitles: the Lessons of History Learned and Let 'Em Down Easy. And you'll see how they all play a role. It's been 71 years since the end of World War II. And the 71 years have been some remarkable years in terms of what has happened in the world. First of all, 71 years is the longest period of time in history that there hasn't been a major war. A major war is where millions of people get killed, where the productivity of countries is just beaten to the ground. A major war means that civilization is set backwards, just as World War I did and World War II did. And while there have been any number of wars, and there are some wars continuing, during this period of 71 years, there have been no major wars. And another very interesting element of this period has been the growth of democracies. And if you would show, Mom, the tables where we show the ratings of all the countries, the worldwide freedom, the Freedom House, rates every country in great detail every year. And there are 195 countries in the UN, as you see in the right-hand column, and almost half of them are free. To be free, you are rated both on civil rights and on political rights. And you're given a rating between 1 and 7, and then the 2 ratings are taken together, and if your average is from 1 to 2.5, you fall in the free column. And if your average is from 3 to 5, you fall in the partly free column, and the not free column is 5.5 to 7. But so that there are 85, 86 democracies in the world. And as a matter of fact, some of the partly free that have a rating of 3 or even 3.5 are also democracies. So of the 195 countries, there are approximately 110 democracies. Yet at the end of World War I, in 1918, there were perhaps a half-dozen democracies in the world. And they were all really English-speaking countries: New Zealand, Australia, Great Britain, the United States, Canada, and Costa Rica. Costa Rica, a little country in Central America, is a democracy. And mind you, you've never heard of immigration problems in Costa Rica. You've not heard of wars going on in Costa Rica. They don't even have an army. But the fact that they're a democracy and that they have free enterprise has made them prosperous, and people don't need to leave or have a sense of needing to leave. So that democracy is absolutely remarkable. The other thing about free countries and democracies, there has never been a war between two democracies. So if you take a look, and I tell you there are 110 democracies in the world, and more than half of the people of the world live in those democracies, they are living better lives. And Milton Friedman, the great economist, always pointed out that if people have political rights and civil rights, they also have economic rights. That economic rights have never existed without political and civil rights, and political rights have never existed without the presence of economic rights. So economic rights, you're right to clap for that, because economic rights means there's free enterprise. And free enterprise is the most constructive economic plan that has yet been devised. And the result of the growth of free enterprise is that for the first time in history, during this 71-year period, fewer than half of the people in the world live in poverty. As a matter of fact, fewer than a third of the people of the world live in poverty. And most recently, the World Bank pointed out that the people who live in extreme poverty, those who have income of less than $1.80 a day, and there are some in the world, but they are now under 10%. And the World Bank is talking about the end of poverty in the world. I don't think that's going to happen, not in my lifetime. But the world is in much better shape economically, and it has grown. And this is the first 71-year period. It is the longest period of sustained economic growth. Now, economic growth is like war, it goes up and down. But economic growth, the trend has been upward through this 71 years. The Economist magazine, which is a weekly magazine, and despite its name, it's a news magazine. It wrote in 2009 that 2 billion people were new bourgeois, that 2 billion people had risen up from poverty into the middle class. And in 2013, they once again wrote that it slowed down the growth of the middle class, but it's continuing to grow. And it has grown because of the presence of free enterprise, not because of government. And in the countries that where free enterprise has been in effect, it has caused the growth of better lives. 2 billion new bourgeois. And the Economist noted the trend continues. The biggest poverty reduction measure of all is liberalizing markets to let poor people get richer. So this 71-year period has been a period when poverty has been reduced, when there haven't been major wars, when democracy and free enterprise has spread, and the first period of sustained economic growth. It has been a remarkable period. But this talk is about the role of America, about magnificent America. And then we get to the second title of our talk, about letting them down easy. At the end, now let me look at the map together with you. And the map, the green countries are free. And the yellow countries are partly free. And the purple or blue countries are not free. All of the wars, all of the civil disruptions that are occurring in the world, all of it is occurring in blue countries. None of it is occurring in the democratic countries, and just a little here and there. Here's Nigeria. Well, they're having some problems in northern Nigeria, so that in a few of the yellow places, but one can almost say that where there is no freedom, there is no rest for the common citizen. And you can see that in Asia and Africa is where most of the blue or purple countries are. In all Americas, only the little country of Cuba is not free. And in the Middle East, you can just see that little speck of green in there. And that's the state of Israel. And they too are free. And George W. Bush, when he was governor, went to Israel to be shown around, and an out-of-office general named Sharon, who later became prime minister, took him around. And he was up in a helicopter, and Sharon said to him, "See that narrow waste of Israel here? It's only 8 or 9 miles wide between the West Bank and the Mediterranean Sea." And W said, "We have driveways in Texas." But this has been an extraordinary period. Let them down easy was something that Abraham Lincoln said. Abraham Lincoln was an extraordinary president. He had 2 years of schooling. It didn't all come at once, it came in a few months at a time, but he had great insight. He was a reader, and he had great insight. And he knew that at the end of a war, that you could either, to the victor go the spoils, you could either win with a hard hand, or you could let them down easy. And he wanted to reincorporate the South into the United States. And so he talked to his cabinet and said, "We're going to let him down easy." Ulysses Grant, who of course took the surrender from Lee at Appomattox, he did. He followed directions from Lincoln. And he said to Lee that your men can take their sidearms and their rifles so that they can go home and hunt and feed their families. They can take their mules and horses so that they can farm and provide for their family and neighbors. Lee was very thankful, and that was the beginning of letting him down easy. 8 days after Appomattox, when Lee surrendered, Lincoln was killed. And then Republicans, mind you, Republicans were not quite as thoughtful in those days. They really went after the South, and we had 100 years of strife in the United States, much of which could have been avoided. But many people think, oh, America is in the worst of times now. America is not in the worst of times. Those were the worst of times. The Civil War. 620,000 young Americans were killed in the Civil War, on both the North and the South side. More people killed in the Civil War than in all the other wars that America has participated in, taken together. And it was a very, very hard time. Well, when they came down to World War I, at the end of World War I, they had the Versailles Treaty, and that's what a major war looks like that we just saw. And the next slide is Clemenceau, the French premier, and Lloyd George. And the treaty that they put together at Versailles was a punishment treaty that